Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to treat food as medicine. So Michelle and I are both functional medicine nutritionists, and we've come up with a list of 7 really powerful things you can do to improve your health. Specifically, a lot of it's focused on digestion and gut health, simply because that's where the majority of our immune system is focused. So eating to prevent and inhale intestinal permeability, which is the gateway of most disease. Thank you so much for joining us today. In the webinar today, we're going to show you how you can eat to improve digestion, diversify your gut bacteria, and then also the connection between intestinal permeability and autoimmune disease. So that is sort of what we're planning to cover today. Food shouldn't be boring. It should be fun. It should be beautiful. It should make you happy and energetic. So that is the goal today. So at the end, we're going to tell you a little bit about how you can join us for a 30-day challenge. We're doing a free 30-day challenge. We're going to be providing a tracking tool. We're going to invite a small group of people into a private group just to do some live trainings, to share recipes and ideas and tips and tricks and shopping guides and all of that good stuff. So we'll send you the link to that at the very end if you're interested in joining. And then we are going to blast through a ton of information today. So just make sure that you turn everything off and focus. If you have any questions, submit them below in the chat box, and we will try to answer those at the end. So basically, I don't know about you, but if it takes too much time, effort, money, I'm just not sticking with it. So, the majority of our weight, cravings, nutrient absorption, anxiety, skin and brain health, all of that is largely controlled by our gut bacteria. So some of the unique strains that are inherited at birth, but what we eat and how we live determine at least 80% of that. So eating and grocery shopping in terms of the rainbow and just looking for a wider variety of color is one key way to ensure that you're getting the fiber and phytonutrient diversity that you need.
So now we're going to talk about intestinal permeability, one of the subjects that I talk about almost every day with people when we're reviewing tests and working with a lot of people who have autoimmune, because intestinal permeability is one of the gateways to developing autoimmunity. And that's Dr. Fasano's research. He's based out of Harvard. And so sometimes people are like, what is intestinal permeability? What is leaky gut? The proper name for it is pathogenic intestinal permeability, because these little tight junctions right here, there should be some ability to open and close those, allow individual nutrients out and individual amino acids, but we shouldn't have tears in our gut. And so the slang for it is leaky gut. And there's many triggers for leaky gut: stress, gluten, something called lipopolysaccharides, easier to see on this picture. LPS is like the exhaust of gram-negative bacteria, alcohol, over-the-counter meds, prescription and meds, over-exercising, being overweight. The list is very long. And so we're going to be talking about some of the most powerful ways to heal intestinal permeability, leaky gut.
So one of the things that inspired this challenge is we were reading about some of the research that came out from the American Gut Project, and it looked at tens of thousands of different gut microbe profiles, basically, and different diseases associated with them. And what the results of this research essentially boiled down to is that the wider variety of plant foods that someone eats, the less disease. People who ate over 30 different plants each week were far better off than those who ate less than 10. We're not talking about going vegan. This includes omnivores. It's really just, eating as much variety as you can, getting out of a food rut. It's so easy to go to our same 10 foods every week, and we talked to hundreds of people trying to make positive diet changes and seeing all of this conflicting information out there, and it's overwhelming. So, nutritional science is still in its infancy, and doctors receive pretty much no training in that area. So what we're going to do today is just share some tried and true ways to diversify your gut bacteria and optimize your health and weight and immune system just by eating the rainbow and diversifying your food. Who we are, just a quick intro. This is a picture of Michelle and I back at the American Nutrition Association conference pre-COVID. We're both functional medicine nutritionists and both sort of got into this field because we have had our own personal struggles in a variety of areas. So I think it makes you more empathetic in working with people and in realizing that there's so much biochemical individuality from person to person. So functional medicine is a combination of labs and science and peer-reviewed research, but it's also looking at understanding the biochemical individuality, that every person is different and that you really can't separate the interconnectedness of our mind, body, and spirit when someone's dealing with chronic disease.
I miss those days. I miss those conferences. I can't wait for
the good old days.
Yes. So you may have heard this quote before: genes may load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. And I think, like in the past, people have just thought, our genes are just the cards that you were dealt. There was just nothing we could do. That was just, the luck of the draw at birth. But now we know about epigenetics and the ability to turn on genes for wellness and off genes for disease. And so much of that comes from the food that we eat, the lifestyle that we live, the thoughts that we think. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about just how we can affect and impact our genes. So every time we eat plant foods, there's just phytonutrients and all of these compounds, and everything is actually impacting. It's information for our genes, and it's impacting the expression of our genes, and can really reverse and change disease so profoundly. So I think that it's easy to just, we just have to eat 3 times a day, right? But if we think of it as really food as medicine, it really helps to alter the choices of what we're putting in our mouth, what we're putting in our basket at the grocery store and the shopping cart.
Okay, so a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today, and then we'll dive in just a little bit deeper. But the average American eats only about 10 to 15 grams of fiber per day. Optimally, the goal would be at least 25 to 30, and ideally 9 to 12 servings of vegetables and fruits each day. Fiber, what it is it escapes digestion in our upper gut, and it comes into contact with our microbiota in our colon. And it produces short chain fatty acids that our body can't consume. We can't consume, but our gut bugs can. And so I think of it as sort of like the exhaust, or once the gut bacteria process the fiber, that feeds our colonocytes, the cells that line our gut wall. So different types of fiber feed different bacteria, and different types of fiber bind different types of toxins and heavy metals and chemicals and pesticides. So yet another reason to make sure that we're not in a food rut. Number 2 is phytonutrients. When you see phytonutrients, think micronutrients and think color. That's ultimately what we're talking about. So plants contain compounds in them that are called phytonutrients, and they help protect us from the environment, but they're also really beneficial for us. They help our cells communicate with each other. They act like antioxidants, and they help to repair DNA damage. Certain colors have unique functions, so we'll dive into that a little bit more in detail a little bit later today as well. Number 3 is nutrient density. So there's something called the phytochemical index, and that's what helps us define the nutrient density of each food. Or simply put, research is pointing more and more every day to supporting the phytonutrient index and just the importance of color and variety in our diets. Indirect lab markers, you don't need to tell us, we don't need to tell you guys to eat more plants. You hear it over and over and over, eat more plants, eat more fiber, but the truth is that most Americans do have a phytonutrient gap. So when we run labs or look at intestinal permeability markers or micronutrient markers, a lot of people have deficiencies. And one of the easiest things you can do is just start by eating the rainbow. And we'll dive into the specifics, but some of the impacts, some of the labs that are impacted are like HSCRP, vitamin D status, high glucose, fasting glucose, fasting insulin, homocysteine, and even just reduced lean body mass. When it comes to rotating foods, for a good frame of reference that we always talk about is try not to eat the same foods every 3 to 4 days. So we'll dive into that in a little bit later too, and why that's so important, especially for those who are struggling with any sort of gut dysbiosis. Stress and mindset, you might not immediately think that that's associated with food. It is definitely associated with overall health, and science is coming out with more and more ways that they're making that connection, but also the environment in which you eat, even the healthiest of foods, is really, really important as well. To activate your parasympathetic nervous system and make sure you're digesting and absorbing those high quality foods you're eating. And then lastly, number 7, accountability and community, and just having a support network. You are the average of the people that you spend the most time with. And so the same goes for all areas of life. And if you have people in your life that are keeping you accountable to making healthy choices and even sharing ideas and trying new things and recipes and things like that, those can all be really helpful. So don't go it alone. We'll tell you how you can join our free 30-day challenge if you're interested in jumping in at the end.
Okay, so fiber. I think, people have heard this, and I think they think of like the supplement container. I'm trying to think of it's over the counter, like Metamucil. I think that's what most people think of when they think of fiber, but all plant-based foods, that's vegetables, fruit, nuts and seeds, legumes, grains. We encourage gluten-free grains because of the damage gluten can do to the body, and spices and herbs. And we should be throwing those spices and herbs around like confetti on our food. They're so full of phytonutrients and phytochemicals that feed the beneficial flora in the gut. So there's soluble, insoluble. We should have a combination of both. Most Americans sadly get about 10, maybe 15 grams of fiber a day, and we should be aiming for 20 to 30. Some research I've seen shows even 50 grams of fiber a day. A lot of disease reversal, they're saying 9 to 12 cups of vegetables a day to do that. So that's a lot of chewing, and there's little tips and tricks that we want to share with you guys in the Facebook group on through those 30 days and how to make this easier. You can throw lots of different veggies into a soup, a bone broth, a vegetable broth, a stock, and then blend it, add all kinds of herbs and spices, taste amazing. It can be the ultimate comfort food, a mug of vegetable soup, and that's a great way to get lots of diversity, lots of different colors in, but, and we should still be mixing it with the saliva in our mouth and not just clunk, 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 drinking it down, because digestion starts in the mouth. But there's so many different ways that we can make this realistic. and you don't have to feel overwhelmed and bogged down that you're just going to be spending the entire day chewing raw vegetables. Okay, so here's some examples of resistant starch, and research is showing that this is really powerful for feeding the beneficial flora in the gut. So some of these foods are best once they're cooked and cooled, and then you can heat them up to like a lukewarm. But green bananas, so you can see these are literally green bananas. They're much lower in sugar, and so most of the bananas that people are eating are really high sugar, and so it can really spike your insulin and blood sugar. Potatoes can be really beneficial if they're cooked and cooled. So think potato salad. Legumes, we recommend cooking those, soaking them, cooking them in a pressure cooker. It really lowers the lectin content, makes them a lot more digestible. Rice is another resistant starch. Plantains, I love plantains. You can roast them and then cool them. They're great, like dipped in different dips, but that's kind of a basic overview of a resistant starch. So here's some examples of how to eat to diversify our microbiota. So Sarah and I are working with a lot of people who are in serious health dysfunction. And so sometimes we have to do this with their diet before we ultimately do this. But our goal with everyone we work with is to really encourage them to be eating a huge range of healthy, nutrient dense, organic food. So fiber, so all of those plant-based foods that I talked about, probiotic foods. So many people are sensitive to dairy. So even though this picture that we chose has fermented milk, yogurt, and kefir, there's a bunch of non-dairy yogurts now. Many of them, the probiotic or the beneficial flora has already been destroyed in it because it was pasteurized, but you can get at many stores now, not even just Whole Foods and natural food stores, but fermented vegetables. You want to make sure that they're fermented in salt. So they're usually in the refrigerator section. You don't want to go for like sauerkraut that's in a jar or a can on the shelf, but the refrigerator means it's live, it's active. Now, there's a lot of people with dysbiosis in their gut that have a really hard time tolerating that. So we recommend starting with 1/4 of a teaspoon and working up, but start low and increase slowly with that if there's any discomfort in your gut. And it needs to be a mixture of a real good balance of animal and plant-based proteins. And this is different for everyone. So everyone really needs to find their own personal sweet spot with that balance. We notice that when people are healing, they often need more protein. But not only that, it's making sure that you're actually digesting and breaking down the protein in the stomach into individual amino acids, because it's the protein in foods that contribute to all the sensitivities, because we're not fully digesting them and then they're leaking out through that intestinal permeability in the gut. And our body does what it's supposed to do. It looks at it as a foreign invader and it mounts a response. And then we develop food sensitivities of the foods that we're eating every day. And all of us have this tendency to eat the same 10 foods over and over. So that's why one of the reasons why Sarah and I want to do this is not only to create this community, help others, but to really like remind us how critically important that is, to not just go for the broccoli and the bananas when we go into the grocery store, but really think, what have I not eaten in a while? I haven't had bok choy, I haven't had jicama, I haven't had kiwi, because I'm not normally drawn to those, but jicama dipped in some kind of delicious dip or just eaten alone is crunchy and sweet and delicious. And bok choy you can hide in a soup if you don't particularly love the taste, or you can always pulse these greens like kale in a food processor and sprinkle them around like confetti in soups or salads, and then you're not getting like this huge bite that you're having to chew up. So different ways to make this a lot more doable. And then we need to make sure that we're getting like the balance of omega-3, 9 fatty acids, all of those. So often omega-6s get a really bad rap, but we need all of these in balance. We find that a lot of people are really deficient in the omega-3s because they're not eating fish. People are scared of mercury, but there's ways around that to get low mercury fish, to take selenium at meals to help to bind it up. So, whoops, different things that we can do there. And then all of those colors of the rainbow that we're going to just keep bringing up are really where the vitamins and minerals and that nutrient density is. And so think about when you look at your plate, is it mostly beige and white and tan, because that's what most people are eating, or do you have all of the different colors of the rainbow?
And then this one I thought was pretty powerful. I picked this slide because, you know, now in the age of Zoom, I don't know if I'm the only one that usually is professional on top and yoga pants on the bottom, but I thought this was pretty powerful, understanding the complex role of diet on health and chronic disease. The reason there's not a ton of research out there is one, funding, but two, it's this really complex interaction of all the things that we're exposed to and all the things that we eat, 25,000 or more food constituents, and each of them modify disease processes in different ways and in synergistic ways. So I guess I can best summarize health across a variety of organ systems and disorders by simply eating the rainbow. And that's just, again, it's the best way to get the most fiber and phytonutrients. And so how do we add more whole, natural, colorful foods to our diet? I mean, most people get, like Michelle mentioned, yellow, brown, and white, but you know, we really need to be shopping with our eyes. Here, I mentioned fruits and vegetables already, but here's a list of where you find phytonutrients. And I know Michelle ran down the list earlier, but all plant-based foods are packed with phytonutrients: fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains, legumes, herbs, spices. So when we're talking about eating, aiming for 30 to 50 different plant foods each week, we're looking at all 6 color categories in each of these food categories, and not even a whole serving. Just take a couple bites or sprinkle, you know, branch out on the herbs and spices, things of that nature. Next, we'll kind of go over, I mentioned earlier that each color, when you see color next to me at the grocery store or on your plate, you can typically categorize them broadly across by color, by some of their benefits. So for example, red typically has to do with the inflammation in the immune system. Some of the, think of some of the red foods that you see often, like tomatoes and watermelons and pink grapefruit. Those are protective against a variety of cancers and heart disease in part due to their anthocyanins and their astaxanthin. Orange is for reproductive health. So our hormone levels are connected to our nutrient levels. And like we said, we are looking at functional medicine labs and micronutrient labs, and so many people have deficiencies, and that can affect each of us a little differently based on our genetics and what else is going on in our life. But one study found that eating more orange fruit was actually associated with 22% reduction in risk of endometriosis. So, and then also delayed ovarian decline by eating more foods like carrots, squash, and dark leafy greens. You might not, there's actually orange hue under most of the leafy greens as well. So sometimes they fall into this category. And then yellow foods provide a lot of the amino acids and enzymes we need to support digestion. You'll see like bromelain and papain and some of the digestive enzymes, and those are extracted from fruits like pineapple and papaya. So the ones on this list have a lot of phytonutrients. Yellow is, in general, I think I associate yellow with happiness and sunshine. So the energy, digestion, metabolism, skin health, and hydration are all really important aspects of the yellow category of foods. A lot of yellow foods have lutein in them. And like I mentioned, underneath the green, there's an appreciable amount of yellow phytonutrients, including the lutein. So it's not cut and dried categories, but this will give you a frame of reference. Green is probably one of the most common foods, color categories behind the yellow and tan, but green has to do with circulation, vasodilation, blood clotting, gut health. Chlorophyll is a really powerful antioxidant, and it's found in all green vegetables. Lutein and zeaxanthin are great for vision. Pretty much all of the leafy greens have these. And then also like broccoli, green peas, kiwi, some of the phytomethylators that are really important for methylation and cell growth. Those are also found in all leafy greens. So another reason to make sure you're sneaking those into your food every day and not just sticking to the same old like spinach and kale. And then finally, indoles are cancer protective. One of the superstars, I think, is like broccoli and cabbage and Brussels sprouts and bok choy, arugula, Swiss chard, watercress, kale. That whole category of foods is just, if you ask me what the healthiest food group is, I would probably have to say that, simply because of its powerful nutrient, packs a powerful punch, and it's great for detoxification as well. Finally, the blue-purple category is one that is pretty rare. So if you see a blue-purple food, get it. Sometimes you will see different, berries are the first thing that I think of when I think of blue and purple, but eggplants, figs, grapes, sometimes in season, you'll come across other foods that are not typically purple, that are purple, and go for those because they'll have different nutrients in them. Purple broccoli, purple cauliflower, purple cabbage, carrots, potatoes. Purple carrots were actually found to have 2.2 times more alpha carotene and beta carotene than orange carrots, plus they have lower starch content. And same with purple potatoes. They affect your blood sugar a lot less. It's a more blunted response than eating yellow potatoes. Anytime you see blue purple, go for those. And finally, white and tan. I guess that's one that white has a bad reputation for, like processed white sugar and salt, because those remove all the nutrients. But a few examples of really healthy white and tan foods. It's great for detoxification. All of the alliums, garlic, onions, sesame. Sometimes we categorize intermittent fasting or an elimination diet in sort of the white category in a broader sense. And then quercetin is a really potent antioxidant found in onions, pears, apples. It lowers stroke risk. And then nuts and seeds are also in the white category. And that can be a great source of a variety of healthy fats, proteins, minerals. There's so many studies out there that associate nut consumption with lower disease risk and inflammation. So, and then, for example, walnuts help with endothelial function, kind of relaxing your blood vessels, which is how it helps with heart disease. And then almonds lower triglycerides and cholesterol.
So whole unprocessed foods, I don't know how many times a day I say, stay out of the gluten-free aisle. And I think that's what people are always trying to find, a substitute for the junk food, like a healthier version. And we want you during this 30-day challenge and indefinitely, all of us, to really focus on eating whole real food. I cooked up some purple rice the other day and it was just so delicious. So things that you maybe don't have in your pantry right now can easily be purchased. And the same goes for if you're going to include grains. The darker the colors, the reds, the purple grains have a lot more phytonutrients, but just eating whole real food is so key. Here's another just great picture of all of these different colors of the rainbow. So we want you all to think back on the last week, and are there any color categories you were missing? I think a lot of people have the greens down. They love their salads, but maybe you didn't get a lot of purples in. Maybe you could add some purple cabbage to your salad. So I think you can put it in the chat box if there was anything that you tried new lately. So if you want to get in that mindset when you go to the grocery store, the 30 different foods, maybe if we just go to the grocery store and throw 30 different veggies in our cart, they're going to spoil in the fridge. So that maybe that's not the best approach, but going and choosing 3, and then next time you shop 4 or 5, and just making it realistic. We want this to be realistic and doable and not overwhelming, because that's what happens usually is when we, it can just become so overwhelming that we don't even start.
I'll actually add one. I think this inspired me to branch out and try new things. And luckily my husband plays along and he's my guinea pig. But this past week I tried tarragon, which is an herb that kind of tastes like fennel. It kind of has like a licoricey taste. And so I made like a chicken salad with it. It had cranberries in it. And then also rutabaga. I had no idea what to do with it, but I had got 2 rutabagas, and then one I cooked in the oven and sort of made like rutabaga thyme chips. And then the other one, anytime vegetables are starting to get to the end of their life, I feel like soup or an Instant Pot is like magic. You pretty much can't go wrong. And then thankfully there's Google and Pinterest too. I rely heavily on just a quick search to get an idea of what goes well together. So there's tons of resources.
Yeah. So we're going to want you to post that rutabaga chip recipe. That sounds nice. And it's just trying to make, trying the different spices really fun. One of my go-to spices is the Bragg's. It's like 21 different seasonings in one jar. And if I just want to get a lot of variety, just sprinkle that all over roasted vegetables or salad. And I know I'm getting a lot of diversity. Mary said she eats the same veggies every day, and that's you and everyone else. Okay. Everyone that we talk to every day is eating the same 10 foods over and over. And that's why we want to create this community to just inspire each other to eat variety. And she's missing purple. So good. Mary, you can focus on purple. Broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, onion on repeat. Yeah, we all have our favorite. And we don't want you to eliminate those because those are good, but just branch out. So we also do a lot of testing in functional medicine, and there's so many markers. Sara mentioned some of them earlier that really increase, so much of our lifestyle choices increase inflammation in the body. And so the term for it is inflammaging, because we know that inflammation is the root cause of so many diseases. There's markers that we can test for oxidative stress. So if we think of antioxidants, all of these colorful, nutrient-dense vegetables, fruit, plant-based foods, and then we think of smoking as like the ultimate oxidative stress, pesticides, toxins in the environment, things like that. So we want to be swinging more toward the antioxidant side of life. So many of these processed foods are either void of vitamins and minerals or very low. A lot of them are added back in, and these companies don't have your best interest at heart. They're not going to get the best quality vitamins and minerals to add back into your foods. They're going to just get the cheapest that they can find to add back in. Advanced vacation end products, you know that when you blacken meat, that yummy, like anytime that you roast any food, that black or brown crispy part, that's called ages, and it's linked to cancer and a lot of other things that are not ideal. So if you're having GI issues right now, steam your food, bake, but just watch for the black and brown on any of the foods that we eat. we can test for elevated autoantibodies. There's now over 100 different autoimmune diseases. So it can impact on any tissue and organ in the body. And a lot of people have lowered immune function from these chronic infections in their body. So we can also test for that. So big fans of those lab markers. Were you taking this one, Sarah, or was I?
Go for it. I mean, that was basically just a reminder. These next two slides are just another reminder of what you just talked about.
Yeah, we're not anti-supplements at all. We definitely believe that supplements are that, just to supplement food when people have deficiencies. But you can't out-supplement a poor diet. It's not possible. So here's just an example of different test markers that can really change. I was working with somebody whose cholesterol was, I think it was 468. And just by adding fiber and variety into her diet, the last time we spoke, it was down to 226. So that's really huge and powerful. This was not drugs. There were no drugs. There weren't a lot of other supplements. It was adding fiber in that really made the shift for her. I mean, she really cut back on sugar and she did make a lot of good changes to her diet, but we don't want to focus so much on what you're taking out of your diet, but what you're adding in. And a lot of times it just crowds out those things that we don't want there.
Definitely. Rotating foods is something that we talk about a lot too, especially when working with people with intestinal permeability, simply because whenever we do food testing, if somebody has intestinal permeability, they are going to show up as sensitive to every single food they eat on a normal basis. And then they're like, what can I eat? Like literally everything I eat is on my list that my body is reacting to and creating tons of inflammation. And the way around that is one, to focus on healing your intestinal permeability, identifying any nutrient deficiencies or food sensitivities, true food sensitivities that are causing intestinal permeability, but also rotating those foods. We always joke about, if you're allergic to kiwis and broccolis and zucchinis, it's not like you remove those foods and suddenly your gut is healed. It's more collateral damage from the inflammation and damage that's already going on. So one of the most important things you can do is not remove all those foods, but just to rotate them and try to think about, if there's certain type of nuts or seeds or vegetables or fruits or grains or whatever that you eat, try to wait 3 or 4 days until you eat them again, and just increase that diversity and increase that time in between eating them, so your body doesn't start to create any sensitivities.
So stress and mindset is a totally different, we could go on and on about this. It's foundational. It's so critically important. Nobody made it through 2020 without stress. So it's some of the consults that we're doing right now, Sara and I mean, that's like the entire time is talked about. We're talking with people about stress and mindset. So we just want to mention it here because it is so powerful and profound. It can be kind of ambiguous. People think, oh, meditation, I just sit down and have a monkey mind. So we're going to be making the first thing that we do together something that's realistic and doable, and that's counting up all the variety. But we just wanted to touch on this because it is so important and profound. And you don't have to jump right to meditation. Breathing, doing 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale, slowing your breathing down to 6 breaths a minute. Where on average, if you count when this is over, if you look at your stopwatch and count how many inhale, exhales in a minute that you're breathing, most of us are hyperventilating our way through life. It's like 16 to 20 breaths a minute, and we should be slowing our breathing down to 6 breaths a minute. That's ideal. And so we can't do that unless we practice it. So that's something that you can do for free with your phone. Just look at the stopwatch, inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds. If you can do it for 5 minutes, great. But hey, do it for a minute and then increase from there.
Even I just wanted to jump in. One of the things that every time I hear you say it, I feel very convicted about is just not eating in a rush state. sitting down to eat and taking 3 deep breaths before you eat. It sounds so simple, but I know I'm like most people running around and stressed and maybe watching the news while I eat or in between tasks, or like, you know, it really affects digestion. And so even, you know, something you can do that takes 5 seconds is just take 3 deep breaths, do 3 deep breaths before you start eating, and it'll help you digest and assimilate your food better. Telling this to myself too.
Exactly. We're reminding ourselves it's so easy to eat on the run or stand at the kitchen counter and eat. And when we sit down and we're mindful, but we switch into this parasympathetic or state of calm, there's no way your food can digest optimally if you're watching the news, because it puts our body into this fight or flight, and all of the blood flow goes to arms and legs so that we're running from this imaginary saber-toothed tiger. So yeah, that's something that consciously all of us can do. And it takes seconds before a meal, right? Putting down the fork in between each bite, chewing each bite of food 30 times. So just here's a couple other things that can be done to help with that mindfulness.
And then finally, I know we went a little bit over, but we just wanted to invite you to join. It's a 30-day challenge that we've created. It starts February 1st. We're not all about perfection. It's really simply about becoming more mindful, getting excited about trying new foods or getting brave enough to try new things, try new recipes. Michelle and I will be doing just some little trainings. We'll send you an email each day, and then you'll have access to a private group where you can kind of share your ideas or anything you've tried that week or any hurdles you've come across, any challenges. And then she and I will also be jumping on weekly and just doing Q&A sessions. So this is a great opportunity to get access to two nutritionists one-on-one. If you've ever thought about hiring a nutritionist or had questions, pick our brains, ask us anything. We'll be, popping in there every week. So it should be really fun. We want it to be fun and exciting and interactive. And so during the 30-day challenge, you're going to be receiving, we've created a downloadable tracking form and a grocery guide. So it's something that you can just print off and hang on your fridge. As soon as you, we'll put the link below in the chat box, and we'll include it in the slide as well. But as soon as you sign up, you'll get a downloadable tracking form that you can print off. And then this weekend, we'll be sending out a grocery guide so that you can start sort of stocking up your kitchen, thinking about different things you want to try this week and making sure you have enough in your house, but not so much that you're going to have a bunch of rotten vegetables in the back of your fridge. And then we'll be sending out different, just an email every day with some of our favorite hacks and tips and tricks and ideas, and then an encouragement. And then you can also, I think being a part of a private community too is going to be a huge benefit. You guys have just as many ideas as we do. And then, just wanted to recap too, that for us, years of getting advanced training and master's degrees and working with challenging cases, it can really be boiled down to some really foundational tips. And one of which is just eating the rainbow. So sometimes we just need the motivation to start and a little accountability along the way. I hear people all the time being like, after the weekend, after the new year, after my birthday, fill in the blanks. It just comes down to there's never a perfect time. And you just have to start making small shifts that you can adjust to and keep building on, things that can last over time, no matter what stressful life events come up or what's going on. But those are the little things that add up to huge changes. And then here we have, you can either, to sign up, you can either go to our Facebook group, or our page is Autoimmune Academy, or Michelle will paste the link down here, and it'll just pop up here where you can fill in the details, put your email in, and that's when you'll get access to the free download. And then the private Facebook group, there's a link that you can go to. There's the confirmation page that you'll get, and then our members area. So join this weekend. If there's anyone that you want to be part of this with you, feel free to invite people. And we are so excited to get started Monday. We'll be sending out some additional emails over the weekend with the grocery list. And if you have any questions, feel free to enter them below, or you can send us a message through our Facebook page, Autoimmune Academy. Did you have anything to add, Michelle?
Thank you so much for being here, and we're excited to do this challenge with you and get to know all of you better.
Thanks for being here today.